Good afternoon, Raj and Peter. I'm very happy that you could join me today. Raj and Peter are with mmHg, one of the innovations enrolled in Innovation Masterminds. And these guys are one of the pioneers, one of the first groups with their first entourage or first group of innovators into the program. So we're just going to chat a bit about your experience. So very happy you guys could join me today. Thanks very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. So Raj and Peter, could you just tell me a little bit about your company, a little bit about what mmHg is, and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll start, and then Pete, you can pick it up after that. mmHg, it's a digital health company that really primarily was initially focused on blood pressure management, blood pressure measurement, helping users, patients to monitor their data and share their data in a way that is easy, low cost, or even free for some users, and in a way that can be used in a clinically relevant, evidence-based manner by their providers. My background is in high blood pressure as one of the things that I do, and that's why the initial focus was that. But we do now all vitals in our telemonitoring platform. So really it's remote patient monitoring. And then we've branched out into other areas like medical software development and cloud-based ambulatory monitoring. So really it's really all about digital health and monitoring of users and trying to get them to improve their health and share data with their providers.
So what was it that got you on this path? Had you always had a dream about creating a company, or was it just the technology that pulled you in this direction? Like, give me a little background in terms of what it is that sparked you in this direction.
Yeah, sure. Pete, why don't you go through that one?
Yeah, sure. So I started off in the clinical side of things. I had a lot of experience in clinical cardiac diagnostics and patient interaction, physiology, and technology assisted care and that sort of thing. And before I'd met Raj, I was working on a graduate program, and I had taken a break, and I was sort of looking for new opportunities. I wasn't sure I wanted to go along yet, specifically along the academic route or back into the clinical. And so I had done a little bit of exploratory work around starting companies and that sort of thing. And then when Raj and I met, which was actually at a grant meeting, we sort of discussed how he saw innovation opportunities in his field. And then we sort of thought we'd give it a go and see where things could lead.
And I think the other thing that I realized after I met Pete is that there are other ways to do things. So I'm an academic, 17 years at the university. And I didn't really think about the commercial realm. And, you know, when we were talking about this CIHR grant meeting, which is federally funded, mostly what health researchers use, that kind of stream of funding, Pete opened my eyes to, well, you know, there are other ways to get things funded. You can create a company and try to do commercialization work. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And in fact, one of my major frustrations as an academic is just simply getting people to adopt the information and knowledge that I had generated through all the hard work and the funding from Canadian taxpayers. And so then I realized, wow, this is maybe a way to control things a lot better and give back in a lot better way, you know, create jobs, create products, make those products useful for users and clinicians. And what better way to try to achieve improvement in health? And so, you know, we're really happy we took the step anyway. It's been an interesting but fun experience.
Well, as you know, Innovation Masterminds is very industry focused, industry driven, industry led, very non-academic, and that's by design. You know, the valley of death in academia is deep and it's real, and innovation doesn't really get a chance. So when you came to Innovation Masterminds, what's been the most surprising or shocking thing to you? Has there been any big surprises since you've entered this program?
Uh, well, go ahead, Pete.
I think the quality of the mentors that we've had. We've in fact we've interacted with mentors that Raj and I have spoke of often in the past. So it's just been fantastic to actually directly interact with them and receive feedback that I don't think we would have received otherwise.
Yeah, I think I think the biggest surprise is that we're in the program. That's probably what I would say. I mean, like Pete said, these these mentors that we have, just amazing people. They've done amazing things, and to be able to pick their brain um, on a Q2 week basis has been just unbelievable. I think academia has its use, but it kind of pushes people to innovate, right? And people get the academic mindset and they're kind of pushed to innovate. They're pushed to think of new ways of doing things. But where academia fails is that implementation piece. It depends on too many other factors. And so, I mean, that's why IMYG is such a great program, and I don't want to discount the other experiences we've had, because we've had some great mentorship and advice by others. But this one was just, it's in a class by itself, just the way it's run, the structure, how organized, but also then the mentors. And these guys, they're all guys, our mentors, have done it all. They've seen it all. They always have an answer. May not be the answer we like, but that's been the greatest part of the program so far.
Well, that's almost like I scripted it and asked you to state that, but those are very, very kind words. We're very proud of the program, and we take great pride in the founders that we brought to the table. We have brought a real strong team of business experts that have done it. They've successfully done it, but more importantly, they want to share their time and their experience. So I've often heard that innovators are really surprised how much time they're getting from these people, and they're busy people. They're difficult to squeeze into calendars, and our founders really have put in a lot of hours helping. So those are very, very kind words, and I'm sure your team will very much appreciate it. I understand with your company that you had to do a pivot. You were in one direction and you had a pivot based upon some founder feedbacks or some business validation that they brought. Could you comment a little bit about that and the feedback in terms of a shift of direction or focus?
Yeah, I think the biggest pivot early happened when we switched from hardware to software. And one of the founders in the program we had met with a couple of years ago, and he gave us some advice on hardware, but you could tell he was kind of thinking for us, oh, maybe software is better. And then when we had our initial meeting, he was kind of smiling and saying, I'm glad you did the pivot. So that was the biggest pivot for our company. And really it's partly a product of being in Canada and being in Edmonton, and looking at where your strengths are and where you can resonate in the market. And really our software was resonating much more than the concept of our hardware. Plus there was a lot of barriers to getting hardware to market. So that was the first pivot. I think that more specific to IMYG though, what we've learned is to really be a lot more organized. And it's not just, be organized. It's not just that advice. It's more about, you guys need to be more organized, and you need to think more like business people, because we wouldn't really call ourselves businessmen, to be honest. We're kind of learning on the fly. But they also said, and here's how, right? And here's a tool you can use to organize your thoughts for key performance indicators, for example. And I mean, for two guys with no business training that are trying to make this up as we go along, that's the kind of stuff you need, right? So a lot of times you go to programs and they'll say, well, make a business plan, send us your business plan. And then you kind of look around and you say, okay, I guess I got to Google what a business plan is and how to write it up. And I hope I do it right, etc. And then you don't necessarily get that critical feedback. Whereas what IMYG does is you bring a problem to these guys and they're just like, okay, here's how you do it, and here's what I recommend to read, or here's a structure to do, or here's a podcast to listen to. And then, you spend your time on focused tasks, and it really does improve the way you're running your business. And that's the thing that's really, really helped us.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting creating this program for post-secondary advancement of innovation. Is people throw terms around fairly loosely: accelerator, incubator, pre-accelerator, and on and on. And I found it's been an interesting process educating people about this being a pre-accelerator. This is before a company has shape. Like, we're talking at a very, very early stage where I feel the most help is needed. And that's why we have the Brass Dome team engaged as a pre-vetter. You have a lead assigned to you, and Sean. Comment a little bit about how that has been, and about having the Brass Dome interaction, the Sean speed dial availability to help you pull things together and maybe serve as a buffer, or ease some pressure. And maybe if you're nervous talking to the founders, tell me a little bit about that role.
Well, I think shield is a good word. So Sean sometimes shields us from what we're hearing. But I'm half joking, but half serious. Sometimes you're trying to run things as best you can, and you think you're doing a good job, and then you realize, oh wow, we're not really doing this very well. And sometimes that advice can be a little critical, but that's okay, because that makes you wake up and smarten up. But I think that's the biggest thing. Like, Sean, he's so great because he's just so laid back, and he's so collegial, right? So he kind of brings more of a I don't know, he makes the environment much more comfortable. And not to say that it wouldn't be, but things can get intense. When you're getting advice from some of these founders, things can get a bit intense. And so, he's kind of grounds it, which is really nice.
I think the structure that he brought to the whole program was nice as well, to, provide direction prior to each meeting, so that we're not sort of like sitting there, twiddling our thumbs trying to figure out which direction this meeting should go in. I think that was a huge benefit plus.
So where do you guys want to take your company?
Well, at present we're scaling. So we've got 3 verticals, and we're executing on getting customers in each of those and scaling up. And then really one of the biggest things that we discussed over several meetings with the founders is, do we raise and try to make a stab at hyper growth, or do we slowly build and then decide where we're at? And we decided on the latter for now, but not to say that we won't raise and try to scale much faster later. I think for us, we're new to business, but we're also in newer country. Like, we're in different countries. Our major market is not in Canada for some of the products that we make. And so it takes a little bit of time for us to understand where we sit in a market, especially if it's highly competitive, what part of our product resonates, and then who we can partner up with. So I think now we're focused on scaling and slowly growing. And then in the fall, we want to look at what our next move is. And I would say that that's been the only downside of you're probably going to ask about downside, but now that I'm thinking about it, I might as well mention, I think, we found we need time to execute on the advice. And so, meeting every 2 weeks has been fantastic, but sometimes we're kind of thinking, okay, well, I hope we can save some of this for later rather than meet so close together. Because sometimes you need time to put into play the advice you've been given and see how things are playing out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the balance we have to find between academia and industry. If it was just purely industry with no consideration to academia, you wouldn't have 2 weeks in between meetings. It would be go now and get her done, or move on to the next best thing. But at the same time, through academia, things move a lot slower. So the question is to find the balance, but put healthy pressure and some are able to figure out a way to make it happen. And obviously priorities shift as you start to move a venture forward, gain industry validation, build excitement. Your motivation and your desire to track resources shifts considerably. So until you get that validation in academic world, sometimes it's hard to light that fire and get things rolling. So I totally understand what you say is that, you do feel some pressure. Like those coming into the program, there is an expectation from founders that they've got to do what needs to be done to make things happen. But we have heard that before, and that's natural and by design. 2 weeks is we find it's about right to put enough healthy pressure to keep it real and keep it moving. Any advice for innovators thinking about the program or unsure whether they should come into the program? What kind of advice would you give those that are pondering?
Pete, do you want to go first? I've got a couple things.
I mean, I think, as you said, I think have that initial conversation with you guys. Don't assume that you're at the wrong phase of development, and sort of take that initial step would be my, what comes to me off the top of my head, I think.
Yeah, I think out of anything we've done, this has been the most valuable. And again, I don't want to denigrate other things we've done, but sometimes you get the feeling that accelerators are, for the companies in an accelerator, but also maybe sometimes more for the people running the accelerator. And so we never got this feeling for mmHg. We're astonished at how much time has been given to focus on us. And I think that no matter what stage you're at, you can benefit from these conversations. So if you can get in, I would strongly consider it, because it is the single most valuable thing we've done so far in the journey that we've had in this company for the last since we switched from software. So it's been about 2-3 years.
Well, we've got next session coming up next week. Are you excited and ready for the next meeting?
Yeah, see, what's happening with us is we have these real world issues and obstacles, challenges, questions that crop up between meetings. So what we're focused on is, I think we've done enough work based on the feedback that the founders have given us on our basic strategy and monitoring of the company KPIs, et cetera. But I think now what we're doing is we're using the meeting strategically to focus on things that have come up. And so, for example, in the last couple of weeks, what's come up is licensing. And then, so we don't really have a really good approach to determining the value of a licensing deal. And so this is something that we're going to be talking to the founders next week about. And I mean, I'm sure that the advice is going to be very valuable for us.
Excellent. Any final comments for any of the founders, any of Brass Dome, any of the innovators? Any final comments?
I mean, from me, from Pete, just thanks. I mean, just like really want to thank you all for letting us in and for taking the time, the interest in us, and hopefully it pays dividends. I think it already has, but I mean real dividends down the line, in the sense that we grow and become successful. But I mean, I hope this kind of a program gets expanded. I was speaking to an entrepreneur in Calgary last week, and that individual was lamenting the fact that there wasn't something like this there. But I assume, or hope, that there's plans to make it Alberta wide, because I think it's really, really needed.
Thank you for those comments. And yes, we are in discussions with Lethbridge, Calgary, all the other PSIs in Edmonton, and we're working hard to expand the program. We're getting some great feedback. We've had tremendous progress, and we've got darling companies like you with enormous opportunity that you're the reason we're doing this. It's because we see great promise. And when we evaluate opportunities to come into the program, one of the first things we look at as Brass Dome is the suitability in terms of culture, but also the coachability of the innovators coming in. And when we have innovators like you that are like sponges to gather whatever you can to help move the innovation, those are the kind of innovations and innovators that the founders want to work with. So it's been an honor and a pleasure working with you, gentlemen. And like I said, you're one of the darlings in the program, and we're looking forward to continuing moving you forward. So really, really happy to have you in, really excited about the things that are developing with your company, and really looking forward to next week's session to see what new things pop up. So thank you for your time, guys, and we'll see you next week.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.